Okay, so this is a Maven project and J2E project. So what I mean by the Maven and what I mean by the J2E, J2E means Java Web Application. So J2E that is developed into using JSP, Servlet. Okay, for database, it's using MySQL to deploy the application. For the server side, it's using Tomcat, and to manage the dependencies, it's using Maven. Is following the embassy architecture, and to connect with database, it's using JDBC connection. Okay, so what are these things and how we are using this? First, we'll discuss the session, like discuss the things about the technologies that we are using and what are the use of that specific technology there into the application. Like when you create application, there will be a combination of different technologies that work on uh, a specific location. Like for the JSP, it will handle the responses, and HTML we are going to define the elements, and for the servlet we are handling the server part. For the database, we are storing the information over there, and how we can deploy the application. For that we are using Tomcat. So first, it's using for the front end. Like if we talk about the MVC architecture, the architecture will be MVC. So understand the architecture, and it's instant for the view and control model view and controller. So is for model, and V for the view, and C for the controller. So what it means, we are dividing the entire development process into three parts. So model, view, and controller. So what will be the thing that will come under the view, under the model and controller? Let's understand. First, talk about the view. Okay, view is a part where you can see all the elements, the front end part. So I can name it as a front end. And model will be your backend, and controller will be your server side program. Okay, it means whatever the elements you can see over the over the web page, there will be a input box, there will be a button, there will be a link. So these things will be developed and come as a view part. So whatever the user can interact, like you can see whatever the things you can see over any website, it will come under the view part. And for the controller, the backend process, the server side process. So the controller basically handle the requests and responses that is coming from the user, and send the back response to the user. So controller will handle the request and responses. And the model section, we are covered to the database transaction. So whatever the database transaction will be there, it will come under the model, under the model part. How we can divide these things into into a architecture, into a application. So we have a JSP, HTML, CSS to cover the, like we have HTML, we have a CSS, we have a bootstrap, uh, to maintain the front end. For for the model, we are using JDBC, and you can say the Java. So we are writing all the queries over there into a Java code simple, and there will be SQL queries. Also for the controller side, we are using Servlet. So that Servlet is going to handle our requests and responses, and the application is deployed over the Tomcat server. And now let's move to the project and understand the file structure, how we are dividing this structure into a MVC architecture. So if you see the first package, or like first package here under the SRC main Java, it is a bean package. And as we are using controller MVC architecture, first understand where is the MVC thing. So whatever the controller requested will come, like whatever the code for the controller, it will be available under this controller package. And for the view part, the complete view part is available under the web folder. So all the JSP, CSS, JavaScript, and images that will be used, that is going to use for the front end, will be come under the Java web folder. And the controller, for controller, we have a separate package here as a controller. To create a database connection, we have a other thing here. And for handle the model, we have a separate package that's going to handle our model part of the like database transactions of the application. So now understand in the detail about the other folders and other packages, what they are doing here. So at the very first, we have a bean package that contain the beans of different beans. So here for the bean, like beans are using to create a getter and setters. Like here, what we are doing, we are going to assigning, like we are going to converting the attributes into objects. Like a user can be have a multiple properties, or any entity can have a multiple properties. Like it can be have user ID, username, email, password, and anything. So we are not going to separate those properties one by one. So we are just going to convert them into a object, and after that to set the values to in that object, and to get the values from that object, we need a beans. So we have defined the properties here, and after that we are creating a data setter methods that will help us to set the value, those value to those attributes, and get the values from those attributes. For each module of the application, we have a different bean, and those are working similar kind of work. So here, this bean contain all the property and data status related to the user bean. Under the cost section, all the like properties, or you can say variables, you can say entity is are there, and that does contain the data and status value also there. Another calculation things, all the related attributes related to the related to the calculation, that will come here, that contain different properties and data and setup for the same. So they are doing the same work, but we are divided them into according to the modules, or according to the model of the applications, like different modules into the applications. So we can do the separate things. After that, we have a controller. So the controller is doing same, handling the request and responses. If you are aware with the servlet, so all the servlet code will be come here. So we are writing servlet classes here that's going to perform to handle our request and response. The request that is coming from the user end, the controller will handle that request and send the data to the database. Accordingly, according to the business logics, the application will perform the operation and send a response to controller. That response will be sent back to the view part, and the mediator here is the controller. So the servlet is going to handle the request and response as a mediator. So similarly, it's also doing the same work. According to the modules, we are dividing them into the different controllers. So we have a one controller here as a login controller that contain do get do post operations, that's going to perform at the time of operation. And similarly, under the registration controller, we have a do get and do post responses. Calculation related operation will be performed here. So we'll understand this code in detail in a while. I'm for now, I'm just focusing on the file architecture and the files that we are using into the application. Okay, another package, we have a DB connection. So under the DB connection, we have a class DB connection.java. This class contains the database connection details. Let's suppose we have a connection, and to connect it with the database, we need a URL, we need a driver, and we need a username of that application, of the database, your password of the uh, database, and then we have to create a connection. So we are not going to write this code again and again whenever I need to connection with the database. So we have created a separate class over there. Under the class, we have a method get connection that will help us to create a connection with the database and give us a connection URL. After that, we have a validation here. So in case I need any validation, if I'm using any specific validation, uh, different methods. So I'm going to write the validation code here. So this code is available, like you can see here, this method, this validation method will take input as a string and send a timestamp. So it's going to convert a string to into a timestamp, and we are verifying the string is valid or not here. I think it's verifying the phone number, I guess. And here is valid username. Under the valid username, we are verifying the valid username is valid or not, and it's using pattern to verify the data formats. After that, we have a model package. Under the model package, we have a registration DAO, and different DAOs are there. So DAO is means data access object. So it means what we are going to do here, we are creating a connection. So this is another layer of MVC that says we are handling the database operation under the model section. So for each module of the application, we have a different model, and here we are creating a like database operations. Like we have already done the connection into the DB connection, but under the model section, what we are doing, we are creating an object of DB connect, and we are calling the get connection method from there. And after that, on that connection, we are performing the database transactions, right? So we are writing a query over there. We are sending the data. We are inserting the data into the database. We are retrieving the data from the database. We are performing the update operations. We are deleting the data. Sometimes we are performing some filters over there, some sorting things over there, some searching things over there. So all the database transaction will be available here. So there are three different DAO. The registration DAO contain all the information related to the registration process of the user, or the user edit profile, or some like the data that is related to the user and come under the registration process. Similarly, related to the login operation will be available into the login DAO. Calculation related operation will be available into the calculation DAO. And after that, these are the main Java things that we are using into the application. And after that, we are coming onto the view page or the front end part of the application. So you can see for each page we have a separate JSPs are there. Let's suppose I need to design a page that is going to add a user. So add user, admin, and so all the JSP files, the front end things are there. Here we have a CSS that's going to style our application, and the required JavaScript and the images. So now, after that, the remaining file is form.xml. Okay, so this is also important file. This is a project like a build file. So I'm going to show you where it's impacting into the application. So under the library section, you will see the maven dependencies. So one of the important role of this form.xml is it's going to manage your dependencies, manage your application dependencies. Like if you are using any third-party API, third-party application, you need a plugin, you need a dependency. So let's suppose we are using a MySQL, that is a third-party application. So to connect to the MySQL, we need a API, we need a plugin that's going to connect that going to communicate our application with the third party application. So let's suppose in case of MySQL, we are using the MySQL version 8.021 and we are using this dependency. So from where we are using that connection classes and different classes over there. Okay, is it gone? So we are using, while we doing the connection into the database, we are using, where's the connection? Okay. We are using different things over there, like we are using SQL file.sql libraries. We are creating this connection driver. So from there, all the definition is coming. So for that, we need a dependency. We need a MySQL dependency. So this is if I say, I think I lost the MySQL one. Okay, here we have a MySQL dependency. So when I remove this dependency, what happened? We can't use those classes that is coming from this dependency. So if you see here under the Maven dependency, we have that MySQL connector Java dependency 8.0.2, the same version that is mentioned over there. And when you see, there are lots of packages are there, lots of classes are there that's going to help us into our application. So these are the pre-built classes. So how these things are coming? Let me show you some practical example. I have selected the specific dependency of the MySQL and I just remove it and I refresh my page. I save it again. And after some time, once the build is done, you will see uh, the MySQL connector will be automatically removed from the dependency section because I didn't add the dependency. So now if I go there under the form.xml and save this dependency again and save the file, After the again build, it will add the dependencies. So, and from where is downloading the application? It's downloading from the internet, directly from the internet. So from where we will get these definitions and these dependencies. So you can for to find any kind of dependency. Let's suppose I need a servlet dependency. So I search here servlet dependency for Maven, or we can search Maven dependency for the servlet, and you will navigate to on the Maven repository.com. That is the official site of Maven, and you can check the different versions over there. And let's suppose just go for any stable version that have a most like multiple highest users, and then just go to the on that version, copy this dependency code from there, and just go into your pond.xml, add it and between the dependencies take here. That's going to end here. So multiple dependencies are using here. We are already using the servlet dependency here, so I don't even I'm not going to edit again. And okay, also all the folder structure is done. Now we'll see the end-to-end flow of the application, how the application is working from the internally, the code, these files, how these files are linked to each other. For that, let's take an example of a login process. So how the login is happening over there. So what we are doing into the application, we are sending the data to view, mm, to controller, and controller to model. Again, model will send the response. Okay, let me give it like this. Now, again, the data will be sent to the model part to controller and controller to view. So this is the loop that we are going to perform in each operation. So from view to controller, it means from here into the JSP page, we are going to send a request to the controller that will be our servlet, and then the model will perform this database transaction, and again model will send the response back to the controller, and controller will send the response back to the view part. So now let's understand how the operation. Just take an example of a login process. So into the login, what we do, we are just going to enter the username and the password from this view, and going to when user submit the login button, the data will be sent into the form of a request to the controller, and then the same data will be sent it to the model. So now here, where we are defining the input fields into the login page, here if you see, we have a form tag here where we are sending a post request with a login controller, and here's a button, and these are the inputs where user going to enter the username and the password. So when user hit the submit button and submit this form after entering the username and the password, the request will be sent to this login controller. Now, if you move into the controller section, we have a login controller that's going to handle our post request here under the do post method. Here, we are getting the username and the password in the form of request.get parameter that is coming in the form of request. So we are getting that username and the password. Now here we are converting that attributes into an object. So for that, we have created an object of a user being, and then we already have the setters and getters methods to set the values to those attributes uh, to that to that object, and to get the value of that object. So here we are creating a user being that's going to set a username and the password. After that, now I have a request that coming into the attributes form, but we have converted into a single object. Now the single object will be sent forward to other for the other process. Now my next step is I have the data that is coming from the view to controller, but I have to send the data to the model. So under the beam, now I have that complete object. That object going to send to the database. For that, we have create an object of a DAO, and under the DAO, we are calling the authentication method and pass the data that we have in the form of beam. So Now the DAO will be responsible to perform the database transaction. So under the DAO, we have this do authentication like authentication method, and this is our login DAO. The tech input as a user bean, it means as a user object. And after that, we have like get that value username and the password because we have a bean as an object. So we are getting the value again as a bean.get username, bean.get password. And after that, we have created a connection with a database and create a statement and pass a query SQL query as a select stick from e-user from the table name, where username equals to this and the password equals to this. After that, we are getting that object like if everything is fine, the username and password is correct, then it will be sent it to the like it will the data will be sent it into a form of object, like there will be a confirmation message, yes, everything is correct, you can go away. Otherwise it will send the error message. Okay, so accordingly this method will respond, and the same response will be handled in the form of a string as a result. Now we are verifying the result here as a if equal to admin role. Then we are doing this operation. We are going to create a session. We are creating a login session, and after that, we are redirecting the request to the admin homepage. If the user is going to log in, then we will check and we will create a session, login session, and then we'll send that request to the user homepage. And in case of any invalid or error operation, we are going to set a message as a attribute with a request, and we are like just forward the request to the login.jsp. So this message, now we are performing the different operations, but here we are directly redirecting the controller to JSP on a specific page, but here we are directly sending the data to the same page from where the request is coming. So here to send some message with that request, we are going to set the attribute as a message with the name of message. Now, again, this request will be sent it to the login part, and here we have that message that we are displaying to the user. So if you see here, request.get message, and that we are sending into the form of request.set attribute, and here we are getting the value from that attribute, and we are displaying there as a message. And now let's check another example for the registration. Now this will be a flow. This will be a flow for each module or each operation. So let's take another example for the registration process here. Under the registration, what we will do, we will take some input from the users and going to store the data into the database and send a response message like user is registered successfully. So we have a registration in the form of add user. Okay, so here under the add user, again we have a form. When user will again we have a form. So let's search for the form tag. And when user going to hit the submit button from this form, the request will be sent to the controller. Again, it will send to the controller in the form of post. That request will contain the username, phone number, address, all the details of that request. And that will be handled by the registration control under the do post method. Okay, here we are getting the parameters, and after that we said we are create an object of the user bean, and we set that values to that bean, and then we are calling the DAOs to send the data to the database. So here we are creating an object of registration DAO. After that, we call the add user from the DAO. And here under the add user, we are performing the database transactions. Here we have created a connection. We have got that value. We have just fired this query. And after that, we pass that user bean into the database. And after that, we have execute our query and we will get one response. If user is like registered successfully, it will give ID is more than one. Otherwise, it will give some error. And that ID will be written here. So if user is going to validate and user going to register into the database, then it will return one. Otherwise, it will return zero. So accordingly, that this ID will be handled here. If ID equals to zero, then it will perform nothing. Otherwise, it will send the data to the user, and it will give a registration successful message. In case of any error, it will set a attribute as an error and send user already exists, and whatever the error message you need to show. After that, it will forward it to the end user, even the same page in case of error. And in case everything is fine and user is registered successfully, then it will be added to the registration message and request will be sent again to the end user. And here we are operating like managing the editor operations and other actions over this in the same process. After that, under the registration section, under the user registration page, add user, we are again handling the message in the form of response. So here, if you see, somewhere we are printing the message. Here, request should get attribute as a registration message. So this will be the complete process of the application. If you go for the any module, it will follow the same steps and the architecture is done. Now, in case if you have any question, you can ask me from that. Or I can close the meeting and I can send you the recordings too, or through the support team, they will share the recordings with you. Like the session is done from my side. So in case you have any question related to this, you can ask. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Do you have any question?
Yeah, after uh, after the like executing the code, when we go to the login page, should we enter the password and username?
Okay.
When we enter the password and username, yeah, that thing.
Okay. Right click over there to run the application. Just right click over there. Go to the server Tomcat 8.5. Okay, you need to select the server like in your application in your machine is already configured. So just right click over the application and go to run as and this will come automatically. You don't need to do anything here and just click on finish. Automatically the application will launch over your Chrome browser, your browser, and in case of any other browser, just copy the URL, paste it on any browser and then you
Okay.
can operate it. For that, you have one demo that is shared by the support team. Just follow the demo. It will work same as shows in the demo only. Okay. For that, you can check out your database for the username and the password. Under the user database, just right click on the table, select here, and here you can check out the username. This is your admin user with role ID 1, and these are the other users or customers. So you can go here and search for the username, and these are the passwords. So you can copy it and just enter this password into the application, it will work. Okay. Follow the demo that will help you to operate the application. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And for this session also, I will share the recording in some time. So you will get the complete recordings also. So you can follow it for the future use. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.